Pace is dropped for a new week of soccer down here. And John here, Jarrett there. And Jarrett, I have determined, that at least in my attempts to do things in a NASCAR pit stopping in kind of a manner, that I can actually attempt to eat something resembling breakfast and pour a drink while the open is going. So 25, 25 seconds morning, Sean, is I'm getting better at it, at least getting the multitasking squared away. You, I imagine, are far better at the multitasking part than I am.
Having a kid will do that to you because you either get good at it or you die.
Yep. So
it's really zero middle ground.
Yes. No, it's living in the extremes. This morning when I had the at least I wouldn't necessarily call it breakfast, but it was kind of like the food of choice this morning, because you know how traditionally I am more of a lunch and dinner person than I am a breakfast person. But I'll admit that the last time that I went to the grocery store, by the way, this will qualify as our opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those watching on Twitch. And if you scan the QR code, use the code soccer down here 15. And thanks to everybody who has, you get 15% off your purchase at Kickoff Coffee. And then they in turn take 10% and roll it over into the youth game. Very, very cool stuff that our friends at Kickoff Coffee are doing. Kickoffcoffeeco.com, Kickoff Coffee CO on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Okay, so last time I went to the grocery store, I picked up these Pop-Tarts. You know, like you're going through the aisle, and I'm the worst person in the world to do this, to send me shopping. I'm the worst person in the world when it comes to going into a grocery store, because, you know, you're in there to get like three things.
I need Nick here for this.
Milk, you know, like milk, bread, water kind of deal. And so then you go into the grocery store and you're going up and down the aisles and you go, ooh, let's get that. And then, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you make a right-hand turn. Oh, let's get that because that'll be effective. You know, that'll work. I can use that for a snack and all these kinds of things. And so, no, I am profoundly the worst person to go shopping in any kind of a grocery store ever, because like $20 turns into 70 by the time I'm done. But the QOD for this morning, and yeah, I did have a packet of these before we came on the air. I'm trying to smash it into my grill for about 25 seconds. What's that one thing that you still link to the most as a kid that you still have as an adult? For me, I guess it's Pop-Tarts and all the stupid food that I get when I go to the grocery store. I mean, like ramen noodles and things like that. Yes, I still live like a bachelor at times. Yes. So the question is, what's that thing when you go shopping that you sit there and for whatever reason you can't resist it, and you bring it home and everybody around you at the house looks at you like, dude, what are you doing? Do you have anything that's on that list, Jarrett, since you're shopping individual?
Man, trying to think. Like, occasionally,
you've turned into a normal person, is what you're saying.
What?
You've turned into a normal person, and
no, not entirely, because there's still like. We actually had this. We went and got cilantros the other night, which is Venezuelan arepas.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they had, and I haven't had it in a couple of years, but they had pineapple soda,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, yeah, because there used to be that time where like, yeah, pineapple soda was a staple, and I was always going to find it if I could. Occasionally I'll try, but I mean, I'm trying to think, like that's about it. I think, like, nothing else is egregious.
Okay. Didn't mean for you to put.
And that's not, but that's not even. Well, that's not even that egregious, comparatively speaking. But yeah, I don't know.
So
I'll have to think about it.
Parzival came in, said the campfire bowl, grits, scrambled eggs, and chopped up breakfast sausage, which sounds absolutely amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's a far cry from the KFC famous bowls that they do at KFC.
Oh,
if you know about those.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, I know about those.
Patton Oswalt did the bit about him back in the day, where it's just like we're gonna take all of the food and just glob it into a bowl,
Uh-huh.
or it's like, or you could order it and eat it on a plate like a human being with dignity and self-respect.
No. No, I think for me, dignity and self-respect went out the door after when I went into college back in the 1870s. So no, but no, I'm literally the worst person to send shopping because I end up
Well,
bringing things like Pop Tarts back home.
and and to your Pop Tart point, I can tell you from my childhood, my wife still thinks I'm crazy because when I was a kid, when I would have Pop Tarts, I would always just like eat them out. Like I rarely ever put them in the toaster because I didn't like have
Me
time,
too.
or
Exactly. Yep.
I didn't have like time or the resources. Like a lot of times, if I had Pop Tarts, it was like I'd get them out of the vending machine at school
Yep.
on the way to class.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a toaster on the way to school
Nope.
or in the hallway. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's so yeah, it would just be like me eating me just eating a thing of
Yeah.
Pop Tarts, not raw because that's not a
Well,
good description for
no,
it, but
but
like
just
untoasted.
fresh. Yeah, fresh out of the container, fresh out of the envelope, and you don't do anything
Yeah.
with them. Well, but I have noticed that uh when you go and get the particular Pop Tart, the Pop Tarts themselves have like different constitutions. It's like uh the frosted grape does not last as long as the frosted cherry, meaning it's like how the edges they kind of fray and they kind of turn into crumbs and things like that.
Yeah.
The
Well,
frosted grape turns into crumbs sooner than everybody else.
so I have seen because like it's in at our store, it's at the same aisle as like the granola bars, which my daughter loves because
Hmm.
like, oh, if we're gonna be in the car all day or if we're gonna be out of the house, like we can bring a granola bar with us, and then we're good to go. um, and I've seen that like Pop Tart has gotten really out of pocket with their flavors and
Yes.
like like Eggo waffle flavored Pop Tarts
No,
now and
no,
like
no,
Boston cream pie Pop Tarts.
no, no, no,
Um,
no.
so man, I don't know.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, Ricky Ricardo does have a piece of developing story for the day,
Oh
and
no.
no, I mean this is good. This is good for those of us who uh,
You're right, and Jason, you're right. I didn't have the time or resources to eat Pop Tarts. Walking to class in the morning? No, I
no,
did not. I just so like even at home, I just got used to just eating them
hmm
like without heating them up. Like I just got used to it.
absolutely.
To which my wife told me the same thing that I and Nick have told John many times. You don't have to live this way.
No, I don't have to live this way. But yeah, 99X is coming back after the first of the year.
I'm very confused about what year it is.
I know. I know.
I am going to be very excited that 99X is back. I'm also going to be very weary because it's not 1992 anymore.
True.
Um, so yeah, I want to make sure that y'all do this right
Yeah,
because
that's the key.
if radio has evolved, it's
Mhm.
not the same animal it was. So
Yes.
you can't do everything the same way you did in the early 90s. So as long as you have the people who will evolve the product,
Yeah.
I will be excited that it's back on nostalgia purposes alone.
Correct.
And you guys can you should be able to make a pretty good mint just off of the nostalgia.
Hmm.
But to
Absolutely.
be more than that,
Yeah, that's kind of treading dangerous territory. Michael had
I'm
the
excited, but
yeah,
I'm also nervous.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, no, I'm right there with you. Unfrosted strawberry Pop Tarts out of the vending machine makes a swell lunch, according to Michael Head. Not wrong. Sean Vergara's answer for the guilty pleasure flashbacky food is ho hos.
Yeah, I could get behind that. I have grievances though with all of like the Hostess snacks
Yeah.
because they've all gotten just progressively worse in terms of quality over time. Um,
Yes, and smaller.
yeah, like we were like at a party or something, and somebody had like Twinkies for the kids, which is suicide to give kids that.
Mm,
Um, it's taking your life into your own hands. But I had one. I'm like, this is not the same thing we had as kids. Like the quality has changed.
Yes.
and not for the better.
No. Um, so I mean that's the fun part of it. Everything is smaller. I mean the Little Debbie oatmeal cream pie is smaller. The
The Nick Saban.
Yeah, it is profoundly smaller than it used to be. All of the snack foods are smaller, and you sit there and it's like, well, when back in my day, and you sit there and you rock your elbows back and forth and you stomp through aisle number 6 and you go, back in my day they were bigger than they are right now, and we were paying twice as much. And Jason and Ricky are going through the 99X discussion.
Leslie Fram at last check.
She's like a
I have
major
to
radio domo
check.
person.
Yeah. Leslie Fram, Leslie Fram was big time last I checked.
Mhm.
She was doing really well for herself.
Senior VP of Music Strategy for CMT.
Yeah, Leslie really did well for herself. Like it's a recurring theme that when you're out, like a lot of people when they get it done with being a jock, they go and do a normal job. They do a grown up job.
Yes.
Leslie stayed in the industry and Leslie moved up. This is the same thing with uh, if those of you who remember Project 961 from the mid 2000s, Chris Williams was the God. I think Chris did afternoons, but he was also the program director. Chris, when Project died, ended up working for iHeart, like doing like something with podcast, like not C level, but doing something pretty high up with like iHeart's podcasting and distribution or something like that. Like so many people when they get off from doing being a jock, they
Mhm.
go get a grown up job, as my mother would have called it.
Yes.
Leslie's not one of those. Leslie has done amazing for herself.
Hmm. Absolutely, she has. And she joined CMT 11 years ago.
Yeah,
So she's been at CMT for a while, senior VP of music strategy for overseeing all music integration within the CMT brand, including original program CMT.com and music video airplay across all screens. So anything that you see involving music videos in CMT, that's Leslie Fram.
to the question about why do you put it on that frequency? Frequencies have different powers. Some of them, the 99.7 stick is an incredibly powerful stick.
Hmm.
You're going to keep what is it, Q100 or whatever the hell it's called nowadays, or
Yes.
whatever that station is now. You're
Hmm.
going to keep that there because that is a cash cow, and
Yes.
you're gonna keep that there so you can put uh, 99X somewhere like right next to it and keep the
Mhm.
name, but just move the frequency a bit. But you should still get a good signal out of it. It's not going to be like trying to like listen to 790 The Zone back in the day where you had to be sleeping underneath the tower with a tin hat
Correct.
on a clear night to hear it.
Yes. Yes. And Jason Nix with the comment of the morning.
Yeah, Q99.7. Yeah, like Q, you're not gonna like that's Q's a. I think Q is one of those that's like it's so big,
Yeah.
and it's had the reputation for so long, even going back to like the early 2000s with the Bird Show. Um, but you can also generate a lot of ad revenue with it, so they're not. I don't think they're gonna mess with that one.
No, and you also have app and streaming and other different ways that
Yeah,
you can measure.
future's now, old man.
Yes.
Not you,
Yeah.
but other old man.
Yeah, exactly. But Jason Nix this morning, shrinkflation's a bish, and he's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Bam has posted the U19 goal from LAFC from the weekend.
Oh, the when he got on his bike.
Yes.
Oh man, that was beautiful.
Yes. So for those of you who are interested, go to BR Football and you can take a look at it. And it is not a suboptimal attempt on the bike. So
So there was also yeah, it wasn't a highlight, but from a local angle, Atlanta's U19s playing in the UPSL or NPSL, whichever one. I think it's the NPSL.
yeah,
Um, they are in the final against the Monias.
yes,
But Daniel Sabatu had a brace over the weekend. So if we'll get into this as we get closer to the season with MLS Next Pro in Atlanta.
yep,
Daniel Sabatu's going to be one to watch. He played a little bit with the twos in the 2021 season. Um, very big, powerful striker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was banged up for most of 2022. If he's healthy,
Yes.
he's gonna be one to watch. If you're looking for a really powerful physical number 9 kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Emilio, one single Pop-Tart has about the same calories and more saturated fat than a regular beer. Think about that value comparison. So
Emilio, you and my parents are the same human being. I don't mean that in a bad way, but whenever I would eat a Pop Tart, I remember my mom and my stepdad telling me the same thing. They're like,
Mhm.
"There's a lot better things you can put in your body."
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
Emilio was absolutely correct.
Yes. And then speaking of bikes, Michael had about Walker Zimmerman's bike. I mean, at that
He
point, you're trying.
tried.
Yeah, you're trying, and you're down, and you're trailing, and you're trying to do anything that you can for any kind of an equalizer. So, hey, go for it.
Yeah,
Uh,
20 minutes in, should we discuss that game?
yeah, because that was kind of the idea. Get the opening kickoff in, get everybody warmed up, talking about other things. And there are a lot of different questions that are attached. Actually, let me do the SIG out. Sorry, radio TV term, concluding the opening monologue. It's opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget to use the code soccer down here 15 to get 15% off your coffee. And they in turn take 10% and roll it over into the youth games. Kickoff Coffee CO, kickoffcoffeeco.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, now back to
Don't
where.
forget to do your legal at the top of the hour, please.
Yes, thank you. Anywhere from 5 till to 5 after to make sure that Uncle Charlie's.
The FCC does not play games. Let me tell you.
No, especially for someone who filed the old paperwork with Uncle Charlie to get the FCC license, and it came in on the yellow piece of paper, and they had to hang it in the bullpen to prove that you could be on air. All right, yeah.
We're just living. You're turning this into WKRP, and it's fine.
Hey, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it. They had a marathon of KRP on decades this past weekend. I was in serious
Sure, they
trouble.
did.
All right, so I know that this is a reaction Monday, and Rack, that's what we do. We always try to warm up. It's like come up with something. And honestly, for the monologue this morning or for the opening kickoff, I had no earthly idea what I was going to do until I started to dive into the Pop Tarts.
Until he started eating a Pop Tart.
Yeah, and then that's when the opening. Yeah, and no doubt, Jason, it absolutely is one of the best episodes.
Turkey Drop is the best Thanksgiving episode of anything ever created.
Correct.
It was perfect.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's the perfect show.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
yeah.
As far as other stuff aside from the perfect show, like, I mean, the rest of KRP is damn near flawless outside
Yeah.
of the turkey episode. It's a great, but it's also a time capsule because radio is absolutely not like that these days.
No. All right. So there was a game this past week, and actually there were several. But since this is a Monday, and we usually do reactions on Monday, since the U.S. men's national team did play, figured that would be the lead topic of conversation. We have put out the bat signal for Bart Keeler, so if Bart can break away from work, then Jarrett and I will ask Bart plenty of questions having to do with the USMNT. But I guess let's take this. Let's start it this way, Jarrett. And if anybody wants to go in any different direction, we certainly can, because that's what we're here for. How would you gauge the men's national team now that the tournament is over, now that you've had a day or two to sit there and think about it and look back on it and just kind of let it sit for a minute? How would you gauge the state of play right now for the men's national team, having gotten out of group stage in the competition overseas, where we covered every day on the World Soccer Review? How would you gauge the U.S. men's national team in the state of play right now that their tournament is over?
I think it's hard for me because it's hard to have this conversation and not come off like it's sunshine pumping.
Yeah.
Trademark pending.
Yes.
Because we talked to Nick about it. I'm sorry, and Nick might not be able to join us this morning, which sucks. But you're in a better place than a lot of your direct rivals.
Yeah.
You're in a better place than Mexico. Um, you're in a better place than Germany is right now, I think, because you at least have an identity, and you have a very young team that is going to get more young players, and the young players that are there are, in theory, going to get even better as they are playing in their respective clubs. I think the growth in even the last 2 years from some of these guys has been fantastic. There's a lot to be happy about. That being said,
Yes.
uh, you owe no one an apology if you're annoyed by how it all happened. That part was very annoying. Um, because you had chances to beat the Dutch. You could have scored in the second minute, and that entire game changes in that scenario.
Yep.
Um, Haji Wright had a 1v1 where he just lead footed a touch. Then he scores a goal with just the weirdest finish, I think. I don't know that he knew anything about his goal that he scored against the Dutch. It just goes off his heel and happens to go in. That's
Yeah.
great. You take any break you can get in those situations, but you gave them the opportunity where they were going slower, then they sped things up, and they beat you. And the guys who got you here, the horses that got you here, had bad moments, and then
Yeah.
you got punished in those bad moments by a veteran team. My hope is that down the road, the U.S. can be that veteran team that punishes those mistakes instead of being the young team that's fun and scrappy, but doesn't take advantage of their opportunities, like Christian Pulisic missing in the second minute. And it's a great save.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great save from a giraffe of a keeper. But you had opportunities, and you just didn't convert them. And yeah, you have every right to be upset about it because you had opportunities.
Yeah.
And the guys who you don't necessarily expect to make the mistakes, like Tyler Adams losing Memphis, was the Sky Cam shot was pretty damning to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Tyler Adams. Don't get me wrong. Um, man, that was just awful from Tyler Adams. Like, it was just bad for him to lose him like that. But I'm very much like, I don't know, man. Um, those guys were great. Tyler Adams was one of the best players in this tournament. Those guys letting you down really hurts because those are the ones you expected to be able to lean on the entire way, and then they're the ones that made the mistakes that got you punished. I thought the quote from Louis Van Gaal was taken out of context.
Uh-huh.
And of course, it was just posted with no context, and everybody ran with it. And then someone came in later to provide said context, of course,
Yes.
because that's how it works.
Yeah.
We want something, especially with the U.S. national team. We want everybody. Everybody wants, and we're going to generalize here. We're going to work through this therapy session together. Uh,
Yes.
a lot of this fan base wants a reason to be pissy and sad and angry, and like uh, frankly, the last 40 years, the U.S. national team has given people plenty of reason to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you want to be that when you want to be that grim about it all, you'll find a way, and
So
they did, and it's disappointing because when the full context came out, it makes more sense what Van Gaal was saying.
so Bart, welcome to the therapy session on a Reaction Monday.
Good morning.
Hey, Bart.
The star of Good Day Atlanta. Bart.
You know what? Leave Bart alone. Bart also has to deal with the fact that West Virginia is not going to fire their coach while everyone else is firing theirs.
Buyout's too big. The buyout is too big.
Yeah, and that's why the athletic director before got fired, because he gave him the extension that made this buyout too big and put us in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of coaches who shouldn't be coaching much longer,
Here
Greg
we go.
Berhalter.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't mean this in any way, like Jarrett, like I think you and I are
No,
on the same page of like, I am not trying to drag anyone today. This is not the day to drag people. This is not the time to drag people. Let's enjoy the fact that we just made a round of 16 run in the World Cup. You know who
in a
didn't get to
tricky
do
as
that?
hell group.
Mhm.
A very
Like-
tricky group, right? Like, and we lost to a team that is freaking good at soccer. Like, I'm sorry. Like, people,
Yeah.
this is my biggest thing that I've had this entire World Cup is people forget the other team on the field is playing soccer too. They have the same goal that you do, which is to win. You know, except for maybe England in that middle game, they were maybe trying to play for a draw halfway through. But
I think Poland doesn't. I think Poland didn't want to win any of their games.
No, I don't think so either. No, I don't think so.
Poland was just happy to be here.
You know what? But like, I think it both speaks to where we are as a, like, let's take the extremes on both sides for a second and then try to find a way in that middle of, like, we're at the point in a soccer nation where, yes, being upset about a 3-1 loss in the round of 16 is something we legitimately are allowed to be upset about.
Mm-hmm.
But you can be upset at the result. I don't really think you can be too upset with the overall performance.
Right.
Because I think, to be very blunt, we had a chance to be up 1-0 within 3 minutes.
No question.
Mm-hmm. Whole game changes if that happens.
Yeah. And we had a chance to tie the game after they had scored in the 10th minute.
Mm-hmm.
We had opportunities in this game and we didn't take them. You know who did? The Dutch, because they're freaking good at soccer and they have been for a very long time. I think, John, you said it, maybe it was Friday that, you know, I forget who said it somewhere, but, you know, they're the best team that hasn't won the World Cup. That's just the fact. You know, they've made how many finals? They've been around doing good things for such a long time.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that much insight.
Okay.
When it comes to the Dutch.
You know what? Sorry, I'm just going to attribute it to you, and sorry for
Just roll with it,
misquoting
John.
someone else.
Yeah.
But the point stands. Look, we're not at that level, and it's okay. It's okay. But we are at the level to be legitimately upset that we didn't win, because it's sad. We're not going to get to watch this team play again, because things will change.
I'm disappointed not to watch more Tyler Adams this year. Because
I mean,
despite his error on the first goal,
Mhm.
Tyler Adams was an absolute joy in this World Cup.
Well, I think I got news for you, Jared. I think the Premier League starts tomorrow again because they just hate their players that much.
it's technically, yeah, it's Boxing Day, but yeah, your point is taken.
Other leagues are like, we'll come back in January. The Premier League's like, no, we cannot give up the sacred day that is Boxing Day football to accommodate the players who hate the World Cup.
Yeah, so you end up with So let's just say, for the sake of argument, if England was that close for it to be coming home, Harry Kane would be playing in a final in one nation, then having to race back to play on Boxing Day. Yeah,
and he would do it.
Yeah, he would.
No, of course he would.
I'm sure it would affect Tottenham's performance, so I think that's better for everyone involved.
Yes, you'd have Antonio Conte and the raccoon that's attached to his head, the staple to his head is next. But
it just sucks, man. Like, I think that's where I'm at. It's sad.
Yeah,
that's just where I am. It's sad. That doesn't mean I'm mad. It's sad.
But
that's okay.
But at the same time, you know, you can take the information that you've gleaned. Oh, what's the mug, by the way, this morning?
Oh, it's Cher.
Okay, yes. Nothing wrong with that.
The goddess of pop. Oh, I love this mug. It's fantastic.
Absolutely nothing wrong with the goddess of pop, who has one of the best mechanics in the business. We know this.
Absolutely.
And any interaction that she has with Sean Hayes on Will and Grace is it's amazing.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you have to figure it out.
It's fantastic.
But you have to. I think that we look at the game sometimes, and yes, it stinks, but it comes down to moments. And you had 3 moments, sadly, by 3 of the studs for the men's national team that ended up with opportunities for the Dutch, ended up in the back of the net. You had opportunities early for the United States that did not go into the back of the net. On the flip side, as you're watching the first half go from your right to your left.
Mm-hmm.
And things could be entirely different. But I think we can take a lot of information from this very, very young group. I think second youngest group, second youngest roster in the particular.
4 of the 5 youngest game day rosters were American rosters. This team was comically young, not in a bad way. But
like Jared, that's it. Like, Yunus Musa is 20. He turned 20 during this tournament.
I think he was the youngest player to start for the U.S. in a World Cup. He beat Donovan by like 100 days.
And he's only going to get better. Like, I believe that. So, like, that's what I think more than anything, Jarrett, you can look at this tournament and feel so confident that, and we've said this for how many tournaments, like, oh, well, we're just on the rise. But, like, you look at this team specifically and these players, and it's not, oh, well, the next generation will be better, which I still also believe is true, by the way. But, like, these players specifically have the rest of their career ahead of them to improve. And that to me is like when we say, oh, well, things are on the rise in U.S. soccer, we've always said that when it comes to the men's game for since 1990. But right now you look at this team and I think it's more true than ever because it's not just about the next team that'll come up. It's literally these players have so much more to do in their careers and so much more improvement that they can make themselves.
Well, and you've also got folks that are injured, and you'd like for them to be a part of the process too. Someone locally comes to mind, that you could help. That center back, and
that was to your point. I don't know if I can ever give Tim Ream enough credit for his performance in this World Cup in a position where, we had all put Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman in Sharpie on that team.
Yeah.
Like that was going to be the starting pairing on the back line. And then Tim Ream is the one who ends up being that guy. Tim Ream was absolutely fantastic. Like, this is probably his last foray with the national team. He's 35 years old.
Yeah.
Think about the fact that, only one center back started all 4 games. It wasn't Walker Zimmerman.
No.
Tim Ream earned it. Tim Ream was absolutely brilliant.
Mad respect.
Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant when he did exactly what you want him to do, which is he was called upon and he stepped up to the plate.
All right, so next question, do you want to go off the field or do you want to go on the field? Where do you want to go here? Because we're going to address both, but where do you want to start?
I think we've talked enough about like on the field, but I'll summarize it as I think the team has set a new standard of what we expect from a performance at the World Cup for the U.S. men's national team. And I think that's where I feel. So with that, we can move to non-actual playing things.
Okay, because Michael Hedwood wanted to know about striker and things like that. So that was.
Oh God.
I mean, look, if they just grew on trees, if we could go plant a striker tree in the middle of Florida to where the orchards are.
At IMG, just sit there at IMG and plant a striker tree.
Unfortunately, I'm sure that leads to another question that'll be asked in the chat about striker, but continue.
Just when will they have a scoring striker again? It was almost a complex compound.
Maybe if they hire a new coach.
So
all right. Hey, look, it's one of the things that made me so mad about watching the Polish being so regressive in the way they played. Like,
get your world competition card revoked for lack of play.
Well, that's the thing that frustrated me about the Polish so much is they're just like sitting there doing nothing and like not creating anything. Like, dude, you know what other countries would do if they had a Wondolowski? Sorry, if they had a Lewandowski.
Lewandowski, yes.
Like, my God, man. You know how excited we would. You know what we would do if we had somebody like that who could finish up top, and y'all are sitting here basically pretending the middle of the field doesn't exist.
I mean, Norway didn't even make the finals, and they're freaking got one of the best strikers in the world as well, if not the best striker in the world right now.
Yeah. And so, all right, now the way that I like to do things, whether it's a roster or a coach or anything like that, and this will go Twitch pitch and this will go here. You can't just sit there and say, well, I want to bring in or I want somebody to go. You have to fill that position. You can't just sit there and say, well, I think that so-and-so should not be on the roster. Okay, well then fine. Who's going to be on the roster? You got to swap out evenly here. You can't just have an uneven element. So I know that there are a lot of us that are not fans of the multi-cycle coach. See the activities of Klinsmann, Jurgen. So I know that you're not a fan of multi-cycles, and where Greg Berhalter is concerned, let's workshop this through. you would sit there and tip your hat and go, thank you for your service. Time to move on. Better for both sides. I know that there's probably like a 5-paragraph essay that can be read when you have these kinds of situations when you're letting somebody go. Give me a short list, and not just like Yogi Love or something like that, but let's be realistic about this. And this is Twitch, Pitch, and here. Let's workshop this. What's the short list look like for you, Bart, for when you would relieve Greg Berhalter of his duties as the head of the men's national team?
Because here's let me kind of respond first by saying like the timeline, because we have a camp in January, which again kind of makes the World Cup, this World Cup being in November, difficult for any national team, because typically you would have had the World Cup in the summer and said, hey, Greg, we're so thankful for all you've done for this program, but you know what, at the end of the year, we're going to move on, but like, hey, see out the rest of the year, have that celebration tour. That would be your normal progression.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right now you're going, it's already December. I don't know if U.S. Soccer, Brian McBride, Ernie Stewart, and, the higher ups have had that conversation about what their timeline is, but I don't know how comfortable I would be of Greg Berhalter coaching the January camp, because that is the start of a new cycle.
Right.
And it's a start. It can be the start of finding new players as well.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think Greg really, and I mean this sincerely, I don't think Greg did anything to earn the next cycle, to be quite honest. I think he did a lot of good things with this team to get them to a point where, they have played with much more confidence. They're playing with a lot more tactical acumen. Sure, that's absolutely valid. But also, is that just because these guys are playing at the top level for their club? Most of them playing at top clubs around the world. So how much of that is Greg instilling that on the team? How much of that is, them having that from their clubs? I don't know, but I'm very much team bye, Greg. Thank you, but bye. I'm going to say a name that I think a lot of people will probably call me crazy for, so sorry, but Ronald Koeman would be one that I would reach out to. He has international management experience. I think his style of play is similar to what Greg has tried to build. And obviously, Ernie Stewart coming from the Dutch system as a whole, that would be something that he personally would probably feel comfortable with. Because I think that's what you also have to understand is Ernie Stewart is still going to be in charge. Brian McBride is still going to be in charge. I think. I'm still not convinced Brian McBride's doing a great job, but that's a conversation for some other time.
Right.
So I think that you're going to look at a guy who plays this kind of more positional style of play, tries to, again, the phrase disorganize the opponent with the ball. Like, these are things that you're going to try to do. I think Ronald Koeman might be an interesting. He's obviously not employed right now, so that helps. That would be one name that I would go after from an international level. The other one that's just like pie in the sky, like screw it, go see if he wants it, is Zinedine Zidane, just because why not? I know he doesn't have any international management experience. I don't care. I don't care.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he is like basically the prince that was promised for the French national team job as soon as.
And that's exactly 100%.
He's coaching waiting at the University of Texas background.
So he's oh god, man.
I'm sorry, France, for what's about to happen to you in the next cycle. Then.
Yeah, I think he is expected to be like he's the Will Muschamp to Mac Brown,
which I understand. But hey, why not?
Hey, you know what? You're right, because the worst he's going to say is no. I already have one waiting for me.
Right. So yeah, those would be the two that I legitimately think might be decent ideas, because the other thing is you got to see what opens up after this World Cup.
Right.
Roberto
Because
Martinez is free.
No. There are other managers. I mean, Herb Renard is one that I've seen in the comments. I don't necessarily know if that's the dude I would go get, but like, why not interview him? Like, I want US Soccer to actually go interview people. I'm hoping that they have their short list. Obviously, the timeline is short, but like by March of next year, you need to be having a permanent coach installed.
Yeah, Bam wants him for Australia, actually.
Yeah, he wants us to take Graham Arnold off of his hands.
No.
I do not want Graham Arnold in my life.
No, I want a coach who wants to play soccer, with the ball. Sorry.
Yeah. And Hervé Renard is going to take your national soccer team job and all the divorcees.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we have a lot of them in the United States. You might be happier.
This is. It's gonna be like
he might have a problem with Chicago. We might have to somehow let him relocate to like, South Florida.
I was gonna say you put him in South Florida. You put Hervé Renard in the camp.
Yeah. Hey, if we just say, hey, we've been training to IMG Academy in Bradenton, he'll be happy.
Yeah.
Just wait till old Neymar ends up like signing with Inter Miami in like a few years. Like Neymar in Miami is just gonna be it. Oh my God.
He just fell down again and is spinning on the ground, by the way.
He won't even be able to fall down and spinning because he's going to have, the South Beach flu every night.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. So you're looking at folks like Coman and making sure that you go through the interviewing process with the heavyweights. Jarrett, what about you? Are you willing for a second cycle, or are you like, thank you for your service and go chase?
I'm thank you for your service. I think Greg did well. I think he does have a very large hand in the way they played. I think for these guys playing where they're playing also helps. I think it absolutely matters. It's wild to me that Weston McKennie has developed this way, playing at one of the most like crisis-riddled Juve teams of our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That part is cool. I think Greg has a lot to do, though. I think Greg had to learn to do the job. I think we all learned something about ourselves to get to like warm and fuzzy about it. I think we all learned a little something about ourselves, including Greg, I think he had to learn how to be a national team manager again versus being a club manager. But the fact that they were so willing to be the ones to carry water and to be aggressive and to grab the game and not be reactive, I think is a combination effect, to Bart's point, of I think it's a combination of guys playing all over, and then Greg also getting that right and getting it instilled correctly. And I don't think it gets instilled if some of these guys are not gets instilled correctly. Some of these guys are not playing in places where it's already happening. Yeah. I am still all for moving on because I am a one cycle per coach person. There are exceptions to that. I don't think this is one of them. I think one of the most successful things he can say he's done, though, is he has set the standard that we should not be satisfied with just making this round. We need to be like I think we are, at least I am pushing to in 26 and going forward. It needs to be, it needs to be quarterfinals or better or bust.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not making the quarterfinals, it is a failure. The standard moves up. The standard moves up beyond, hey, we got out of the group, that's a success. No, you need to win that first game after the group for it to be a success. So great job to the players, great job to Greg. Here's your golden watch. Move on. I saw a couple names mentioned in there, like one that's interesting. I don't know if he would be a good fit for it, but Tab Ramos is a name of a human being.
Bernd was looking at Tab as the interim and for that January camp as that transitional individual where
I don't think he would do that.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if you're gonna just have Greg not be part of it, you would have a youth national team coach. Because honestly, you could just use that U20 or that January camp as prep for the U20 World Cup, which might not be a bad idea.
Right.
Yeah. I'd be and to your point
that's
about
just like, and then include some of the older guys, but you just include some of the older guys in that camp, but yeah.
And to your point about not wasting the camp, it's weird because yeah, you don't want to waste that because you're right. Because you're starting a new cycle. I think I saw Matt Doyle mention like you do whatever you can to get this group into Copa America, to get them competitive games against South American teams. You get as many
Absolutely.
competitive games as you can. Um, and as much as I feel that way, I I don't. I also do not hate the idea of like giving those January games to Greg as a thank you of, hey man, here's the last games you're gonna manage.
Yeah.
Go out on your shield with your boys. But it's weird, man. Like I absolutely see your point in it of you want to get moving forward. So how do you strike that balance with like I think you are very respectful to Greg Berhalter for what he did
Right.
here. My gut tells me he's still going to be the coach, and people are going to be really upset. Um, but if he's not, how do you strike that
And
balance?
I very much disagree with that, to be quite honest. Like, not that I disagree with you, I disagree with that. Like, but whatever.
No, and that's fine.
I think if you're looking at Greg Berhalter as your coach come 2024, that's a real problem. That's a real problem.
I don't know what the see. Like, I don't know if he is our Larry Drew. Of he has gotten you stabilized and he has gotten you to a really good place, but his ceiling is limited.
Bam brings in the idea about the current U19, U20 coach and have that as kind of a progression.
I don't think Mikey Varas is. Yeah, I don't think Mikey Varas is national team head coach material personally.
All
Nothing
right,
against him.
Let me throw another name out at you. Hugo Perez. With what he was able to do in El Salvador, he's got national team experience, U.S. national, 4 years, I think, coaching El Salvador. What about an individual like that to bring him into the conversation? He knows.
Jared, do you think it's a money thing for Hugo, or do you think he would like? Do you think he's just gonna be in El Salvador? Because like I that's a tricky one because I think that man is deeply committed to El Salvador.
True.
Yeah, man, I think that's blood more so than anything.
Yeah.
And that's if and everybody feels differently. Like every man has a price, and some price tags cannot be met. That's just the way the world works.
Right.
But again, like we said, it never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be interesting, though, and is so often the case that we have discussed we have discussed this for years on this program. One of the perks that this country in particular offers that some of the Latin CONMEBOL and smaller CONCACAF nations struggle with, the check from the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to clear.
Mm-hmm. True.
It's not going to bounce.
Yeah.
I do think that U.S. Soccer, whoever their next coach is, two things. One, you cannot force them to live in Chicago. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the
Herb
dumbest thing.
Bernard would not want to live in Chicago. We've already established.
Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm saying that as a city. I love the city of Chicago. It's a great place to go visit, and I have family there. Like, it's fun. But like, forcing them to live in Chicago when you don't play a damn game ever in that, barely in that city / state / region, I think that's they cannot stipulate that. But you're going to have to be willing to pay actual money if you want a good coach. Because the thing about it, and Jarrett, maybe this is where I'm at, is like Hugo Perez would be great. I think that would actually be a really good hire for the team and for the program as a whole. But this is not a time to give a guy who you think's a nice up and comer the chance. This team is, I mean this sincerely, you are going to have your best chance to win a World Cup in 2026 for probably the next generation, to be quite honest. And just because winning a World Cup is freaking hard.
Mm-hmm. So I've heard.
But 2026 is your best chance to do it. It's the best chance to give.
8 teams had ever done it. I think 7 or 8 teams.
Yeah. And most of them have done it multiple times. Like, that's the thing. Like, between you look at Brazil, Italy, Germany have done it more than 3 times each. You've got France and Argentina, Uruguay with a couple of times, and then you've got a couple of people with 1 each. Like, it's hard to win a World Cup.
It took Spain. We think of Spain as a nation of power with this sport, and it took them how long? It took them years. It took them forever. It took 2010 for them to win it in one of the most gladiatorial games I've ever seen in my life.
And
It's not
arguably
easy.
their best generation ever. And which
And
fine,
still it took
but
them to like the
yes.
120th minute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a coach who you don't need a coach to continue to quote grow the game in the US. That's not what we're worried about here in 2026. Everything off the field will grow the game in the US in this cycle. That's my vehement belief. / the tournament itself. But the best way to grow the game is get a coach who is going to win games at the World Cup with this team, because you are going to have, despite the fact that we have a much younger generation coming up that's very good, you're going to have basically this entire team back. You're going to have 20 of the 26 guys probably were making legitimate pushes for the 2026 World Cup.
Mm-hmm. And you have
You got to bring
coming.
a guy in who's going to win.
You're going to have a Miles Robinson be a part of that. You are going to have, selfishly, locally, you're going to have a Caleb Wiley who's probably going to be in that conversation at
Anyone
that
who
point
can
to
play left
develop.
back.
Mm-hmm. Nix brings in two other names to the discussion: Jim Curtin,
Yes.
Peter Vermees.
No.
Jim Curtin, no. Peter Vermees would be really interesting.
Vermees, I'm more warm to than Curtin. Curtin, again, no offense to Jim Curtin, I think he's done a great job in MLS. What did I just say? Do you think Jim Curtin's going to win a World Cup?
I still am waiting for Jim Curtin to end up in Europe, honestly. Like,
I mean,
I don't know if he's a Philly lifer or what the deal is going to be with him. I kind of keep waiting for a European club to grab him. But maybe he likes it. Maybe he is, maybe his blood is just going to be Philly. I don't know.
Burned. Maybe you go with an American coach who connects well with the players, but you supplement that with a first-rate assistant, non-American, who's more advanced technically. You can't have another disaster like Greg not knowing how to handle or not knowing how to react to Van Hall's game day tactics.
I mean, look, I'll give you my list of American managers that I would want to see, right?
Yeah.
Josh Wolf, Steve Cherundolo, and then we'll put Peter Vermees in there. I think he's been good in MLS for a long time and has an identifiable style of play. But really, it's Cherundolo and Wolf. I think those two guys, if you want an American manager. And no, it's not Jesse Marsh. Sorry, y'all. I don't believe Jesse Marsh's style of play would translate well to the international level. Just saying.
Okay.
We saw how gassed we were against Netherlands. Imagine actual Jesse Marsh Red Bull's ball for 3 matches in the group stage. No. But I think that Wolf and Cherundolo might actually be good options to consider if you're U.S. Soccer. And again, no, they don't have experience managing at the national team level, but they're very experienced national team players. And that to me is a good enough experience, if you will.
Okay.
Which, by the way,
Wolf's
Curtin also
interesting.
doesn't have. Sorry, y'all. I know that
Wolf
like
is an
not to
interesting
jump on the
shout.
dude, but
yeah. And, much like what I was thinking with Hugo Perez, you also have the playing side in knowing what that is and what that means, in addition to the developing coaching side as well. You get that with Josh Wolf and Cherundolo. The Colonel's in this morning. He is pro keeping Berhalter for another cycle. Took our side from unqualified to the round of 16, multiple trophies, improving regularly over 4 years, continue to improve for the next 4. He says it's stupid to waste that.
Listen, stop. Oh, God. Okay. I mean, the unqualified part, we did not qualify for 2018.
Right.
I think we, and Jason probably agrees as well, but we three and Jason and probably everyone else who's on this network, the 28 thing was a blunder of epic proportions.
Woo.
That took a lot of but took something special, someone special, and a lot of stupid things to happen for us to not make that. So it's not like we were like, I'm sorry, like that Greg doesn't get us necessarily like credit for turning around a program that was like Greg got gifted the most talented player pool ever. Sorry, Clint Dempsey. I know you think 2010 was really talented, but when we're talking about top to bottom, the player pool being super talented, this is it. And he still managed to score all of 3 goals in the World Cup. He still managed to underperform during qualifying. He still managed to, despite winning the Gold Cup last summer, we scored outside of playing a country that doesn't even exist. We scored 1 goal a game. Stop this nonsense. Stop acting like Greg Berhalter is this savant who has somehow figured out U.S. soccer. You know, we talk about needing a striker. We need a coach who can fricking get a striker to score, because despite having Ricardo Pepi, who is a league leader in MLS when he came onto the scene, Jesus Ferreira, who is a leader in MLS when he came onto the scene, Haji Wright, who's dumping buckets of goals into the Turkish league, Jordan Pifak, who was scoring at will at that point in time, the Swiss league. We don't get production out of our strikers.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry that I'm not going to blame all 5, 6, 7 strikers we've called up for the guy who continues to put a system out there who doesn't get production out of his strikers. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that striker is going to be a very sore subject until further notice.
It is, because I think he took some of the wrong ones there. I'm going to die on this hill, and I got called out on it on Twitter. Someone asked about
the Vasquez hill.
Yeah, about Vasquez. I'm like, Vasquez is my prime example, because if you're going to take one who's MLS, who's been playing in form, Vasquez of your MLS guys had earned it based on his form. If you needed like a throw something against the wall striker, Jordan Pifak and Pepi would have been two other guys that had taken, and the Ferreira thing just didn't work. I mean, he didn't work out. Haji Wright scored the weirdest game goal
I
I've
don't
ever
think
seen.
anyone was that surprised.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing about it, man. I was not that surprised that it didn't work. Also, I'm turning into a pumpkin now, so I'm gonna try and come back and continue this.
Okay. So he's going to turn into a pumpkin, and he's going to take care of some real world stuff. So, Bart, how much longer do I have you this morning before you turn into a real world person?
You got me until like 10:10.
Okay, so another 8 minutes, and just call your shot when you have to duck out. But I mean, there are a lot of folks who are screaming from high heavens about bringing in the hot hand domestically in a Brandon Vasquez. And I know, obviously, hindsight's a lovely thing. You know, hindsight's 20/20, lack of scoring. You sit there and say, well, if you brought in this guy, and I know we're always prone to do that, but and I think it comes down to philosophy when it comes to an international competition. If someone doesn't have international experience, then you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it as, oh, they've never done this before, and I don't know how they would react. Or they've never done this before, and because they've never done it before, they may not understand the gravity of the situation and operate without any sense of fear of their surroundings, and it could be a positive. And I think we see how folks are wired in situations like this, with Brandon Vasquez as that example of, okay, it appears that Greg Berhalter and the staff are of that mindset of, okay, if you don't have international experience, we don't think you can come and play in this reindeer game, instead of sitting there and going, okay, come on in, bring your youth, and just go out there without any fear. I think that, once again, you can sit there and see how someone's wired in a situation like this.
No, I think that's a correct read on the situation. I just
do your thing.
I don't want to dump on Greg. Like, that's the last thing, because, like, yes, the man got us to a World Cup. That alone does deserve credit. It's not as much credit as I think people want to, like. I think people are both discrediting and overcrediting him by talking about, like, I don't want to discredit the fact that he got us to a World Cup. He still did the job. We got through qualifying. We basically qualified before the last match day. Obviously, we had to just not lose 6-0 to Costa Rica. Like, those are positives, right? He got us through a very difficult group. He put out a game plan against the Netherlands that kind of worked, to be quite honest, until, obviously the Netherlands had a better game plan. I'm not going to, look. Yeah, he got outcoached by Louis van Gaal.
He ain't the first.
Would I have liked for him to be more adaptable in just about every facet that he has? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that his system and a reliance on system is a negative at the international level? Yeah, because I think, again, he never put a system out there or a tactic out there that necessarily got the best of the players that he had on the field. That's my personal thought. And again, I think that's evidenced by the fact that our goal scoring was always underachieving.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, that's a little bit on guys finishing. Obviously, Pulisic, if he puts that ball home against the Netherlands in the third minute, it's a different ball game for sure. But that was also that was one of the few clear-cut chances we had. Tim Ream would have loved for him to smash home that one that he had right in front of goal. The goal we scored was probably the luckiest, most non-chance we had all match.
Mm-hmm.
But it still comes down to the fact that we're not getting the production offensively that we need.
Right.
And that's a legitimate criticism of Greg. That's fine. Yes. That doesn't mean that he didn't do a lot of good things. He brought in, I think the biggest thing most people would agree with, of the guys playing on that field against the Netherlands, maybe Tim Weah wasn't necessarily a big get, but Tim Weah, Serginho Dest,
mm-hmm.
Anthony Robinson, Yunus Musa.
Yep.
And countless others that he brought in to the fold. Ricardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, guys that he recruited very well. And that he deserves a lot of credit for.
Right.
There's a lot of things to credit Greg Berhalter for, but I don't know. I just don't want us to think that, I think we've said it multiple times. Great, we made the knockout round. I think winning the group or getting out of the group is the bare minimum for the U.S. when we make the World Cup, and it was definitely the bare minimum with this group of players.
Right. And I think that one of the things that will always stick with me when it comes to Greg Berhalter is treating this, especially with the dual nationals, like a college football program.
Yeah.
Where you're chasing after, and this is something that really hadn't been done to the extent that Berhalter had done it with in the past, chasing after those dual nationals instead of sitting there saying, okay, well, it's either the U.S. or Mexico. He'll go to Mexico, not worry about it. I'm going to stick with the guys that I've got. He went and chased after those dual nationals to the extremes that we haven't seen previously. And I think that I would hope that sets a precedent for his successors to sit there and say, dude, it's okay to chase after those guys because they can only tell you no. All you got to do is ask and sit there and say, hey, look, it's like, all right, do you want to play at Marshall or do you want to play at West Virginia? Neil Brown goes and talks to these kids, and it's like, look, do you want to play in the Big 12 or the Big 10 or whatever big conference you're in right now? Or do you want to be in Conference USA? You'll play right now. Yeah, we didn't make a bowl game last year, but you'll play right now. You'll get reps, and you're going to be sitting on the bench if you're going someplace else. And it's those kinds of things that I hope will continue to rub off on his successors for something that we didn't see a whole lot of.
And there's no doubt that I think Greg Berhalter elevated the standards for what U.S. soccer can and should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that those standards were elevated because a player pool, both widening and elevating top to bottom.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily Greg Berhalter's doing, except for a few, the dual nat recruitment that we talked about. But we're at the stage right now, and I'll just go back to it. I think, look, this was a successful tournament by the fact that we got out of the group stage. I think it was successful also because we definitely looked like, I would say we looked like the better team more often than not in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
We looked like a very competitive team against England, if not on the same level as them. I thought we looked very good against Netherlands for most of the game outside of, a couple of attacking opportunities that Netherlands had and they scored. That is a credit to Berhalter, but I think also, it's a credit to the fact that we have really good players right now.
Yeah. Well, and, I think that what it also says is that while you were not the number one team in CONCACAF because of the group stage, you proved that you are right now, I think, the top team in CONCACAF through what you were able to show.
Yeah.
And looking at John Herdman, who I think at times was probably overwhelmed by his surroundings. If you look at his actions and his press conferences and his behavior, you had someone who was comfortable under that hot spotlight. And right now, I think you are the best team in CONCACAF because yes, we know we love our a great goalkeeper, son, Keylor Navas, but Costa Rica is not the top team.
No.
Mexico has too many issues right now, a lot of them associated with age, and they don't have that next generation coming through.
Exactly.
And with Canada, while they are talented, I think they were overwhelmed.
Canada also doesn't have a great generation after this, John. They did not
Right.
perform well in the last couple of youth tournaments at the CONCACAF level.
Mm-hmm.
At the CONCACAF level. You know, we've made a lot of stink about the U.S. not qualifying for the Olympics multiple cycles in a row. Canada didn't even make the game to play for the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So you're 100% right in that, you know, we as a soccer nation, as a football nation, has, in my opinion, we are the top dog in this region.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, you need a coach who's going to coach the team to be the top dog in this region from start to finish. And you need a coach who's going to be able to figure out how to get the best out of this much more talented group of players that we have now. And that's kind of where I am with Greg Berhalter. Is I watched too many times us underperform the expectations we had. And I don't think my expectations are that high. But, you know, there were multiple games that, sure, we looked good. We didn't score. And a lot falls on Greg. Or we had multiple games that we just looked flat out bad. I mean, I think about the Panama game in qualifying, or the Jamaica game in qualifying, where, you know, we had moments where it was like, are we even good at soccer?
Yeah.
The Honduras match, first match of down there in September. I mean, there were times that I was very concerned that we were not playing as well as we should.
Mm-hmm.
And I think someone else mentioned in the chat, like Greg Berhalter continues to just not pick great rosters and lineups. I think he has struggled with that for a while. He got lucky, I think, a little bit in this tournament that, I don't want to say lucky, he chose the no duh options for like a lot of lineup choices. The only lineup choices that he made that were even slightly controversial were CCV starting for Zimmerman.
Right.
And as much as I like Walker Zimmerman, I'm not going to tell you that like there's that big of a difference between the two. And obviously for that game, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I think also, though, the Ferreira choice clearly didn't work. Now, I don't fault him too much, because clearly Josh Sargent wasn't healthy.
Right.
And I don't think we can say that Haji Wright was the answer either.
Yeah. So you were dealing with what you had there. You couldn't call up. You couldn't call in somebody and go, "Hey, I need you here."
Yeah, exactly. Which sucks, you know. But you know, could we? And this is the last like real topic we want to hit, because, like I said, I got to actually. I'll turn into opponents.
Japan and Croatia scoreless in the 13th. By the way,
I do think we can address a little bit the Gio Reyna thing right now. I think what we saw him play 45 minutes, and he looked good. He still looked not super connected with the rest of the team.
Right.
And he looked fatigued, like, throughout his 45 minutes. So do I think we should have seen more of him? Yeah, I think that's still very fair. But I'm not going to. Could we have is the question. Maybe.
In the physical sense is what I'm talking about.
And I agree. But I agree with you. Like, that's my point, is like, maybe, like, do I think we should have seen him more than like 20 minutes in the group stage? Yeah, I think we probably should have. Yeah. I still think he would have been the better option against Wales at the end of that match, because he could have just done the Gio Reyna thing where it's, hey, kick the ball to Gio Reyna and let him dribble past the entire Welsh defense, who at that point in time were tired and old, you know. Yeah. I'm not saying it would have been a goal, but like I think that would have been my choice,
right,
personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Greg got most of his lineup decisions correct. Mm-hmm. I think he messed up a lot of times on substitutions. As much as I'm going to support the Georgia kid, Shaq Moore looked very bad every time he came onto the field.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think that Iran, though it was a little bit mired by the fact that Pulisic got hurt, Kellen Acosta sub put us in such a defensive posture with no ability to actually hold possession and move out of it. And I think that's more on Kellen Acosta than it is Berhalter, but Berhalter still put him in there. You could have put on Gio Reyna maybe in that game to play winger.
I would have liked to have seen more Brendan Aronson minutes-wise.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, there are little legitimate things. I think this tournament, most of his decisions were right because they were no-duh decisions.
Yeah.
But he does have a problem with building rosters, choosing the right 11, all these things, substitutions. Like, he hasn't proven to be a great in-game manager, or game manager is probably the best way to put it. He has built a good system. He's built a good team, but he does struggle with kind of the most important part of coaching, which is like winning on the day.
Reactions, yeah.
Yeah.
Reacting and reacting. So what is your schedule like on Tuesday and Wednesday?
I am busy both mornings,
Okay.
but I might be able to come in a little bit earlier. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, just if you come in off the top on one of those days, that's perfectly fine because
Yeah.
you know that we've got 2 days of postmortems before I end up going to Georgia State without
Yeah.
live TV on Thursday and Friday. Quick plug for Soccer for US. What's going on?
Yeah. So once we get a chance to record, we'll have a kind of a postmortem debrief of this tournament. I want to reiterate that I think we should be proud of this team. We should support the players. Don't forget how young they are.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget that they all individually have great careers, hopefully ahead of them. And furthermore, as I'm going to say after just about every World Cup, capitalize the momentum and go. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit in this particular audience, but go support your local clubs. And I'm not talking professional. I'm talking about go support the players, the kids that are playing down the road from you. Go get your coaching license. Go get your referee license. Go volunteer to be a field marshal for them or a field manager or anything of those. Volunteer to run the concession, something, because U.S. soccer does not own soccer in this country. We have to make it better every day by choosing to prioritize soccer in our lives. And that's what our job is as fans of this game. And it can be as simple as, again, maybe preaching to the choir here, can be as simple as in buying the MLS Apple TV package, watching NWSL on Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Those things matter. Those things matter. So continue to support soccer, but make sure you're taking a conscious effort to try to support them.
Bart Keeler at Bartimus Prime 19 at Soccer for US POD. Go perform actual real world work duties, sir.
We'll going to write some tweets.
You're going to go write some tweets. And it's going to go over it. Wow.
Yeah.
And
bye, y'all.
Bye. That's Bart Keeler with his share mug as the goddess that she is. Yeah, Nick, you were right on. I mean, it was very cool to see the Soccer in the Streets piece. Yeah, that was very, very nice. And it's probably one of the few things that the English language network has done that has been decent in their entire coverage. I don't watch it. And as a matter of fact, I've got Josip Gvardiol and his Phantom of the Opera mask on Telemundo right now. Goalless in the 18th, by the way, with Japan and Croatia. We'll go over all the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. And yeah, I mean, it's basically bought and paid for by the Qatari government and all of their businesses. So yeah, I have zero interest in watching that coverage. And like I said, I watch Telemundo. I've been watching Telemundo the entire time, and that's part and parcel why, if you notice that when we do the World Soccer Review, I pull the Telemundo goal calls because, I mean, first off, it's Andres Cantor most of the time. So you can't go wrong with that. And I like their energy and I like how they describe things. And it's just, it's cool to hear things differently and perspectives and energy and things like that. And getting the post sound when I can from other sources. It was great, Bam. You guys up in the middle of the night watching that stuff is fantastic. But no, like I said, I watch Telemundo and their coverage. That's an easy one for me. Let me go back to. I'm just going to go back to the top because you guys have been talking a lot this morning, and it's great that you guys have been able to do that. So let me go through all of the comments when Bart kind of joined us in about 9:30. But yeah, Rack, what we traditionally do is we try to have that opening monologue segment, opening kickoff kind of thing, because we know that not everybody hops on at 9:05 if you're watching us on Twitch. And we know that you kind of blend in, you just kind of work your way in, you get your morning beverage, you get your breakfast, you get your Pop-Tarts, you get your coffee, you sit there and you camp out. And it's going to take a little while. No, we understand that completely. So Soccer for Good OG on the U.S. men's national team ascending, but not there yet. Rack watched carbon copies of the USA match play out in at least 3 other games. I think that made me weirdly feel better. Pushed ourselves up and got some respect, but we're not at a beat the Dutch stage unless we play our best game. You can't miss chances, have bad mistakes against a team like that. True. And yeah, Nick, you were not the only one hoping that guys like De Jong would really be knocked out by the flu. And Bam, yes, AFC is better than CONCACAF. What we're seeing with Australia, but remember, it's also got stuff to do with the group. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Rack, I'm sure everyone in the U.S. is saying it. We need a striker, and it goes with the conversation that we had this morning. Do you think there were some questionable personnel decisions? Do you think we missed Sargent's hold-up play? Tossing Ferreira in without any minutes in that spot was asking a lot, and he looked like a deer in headlights. Emilio, listening to some pundits throw out the idea that 3GB may want to go back to the club level. He may want more day-to-day interactions. He's accomplished his job of riding the ship. I mean, some folks are wired that way. Some folks are club dudes. I think Jesse Marsh is a club guy. So I don't necessarily think that he would be one to give a call to see if he'd be interested in the men's national team. I think he's a club guy right now, and you're seeing that what he's doing with Leeds in the Premier League is speaking volumes for the value of an American manager who learns both in the U.S. and abroad. Let's see. With the USMNT already qualified for the next World Cup, is it a blessing or a curse? I don't know if it's a curse. So you would think that with their talent pool. So I don't know if it's either. Maybe it's choice C, none of the above. Because Bam, you look at what's going on. If it were a blessing, that to me that gives the notion of, we don't have to worry about it. And if it's a curse, maybe it is a bit of a curse with the expectation level. I don't know. So maybe it is a bit of a curse. So maybe curse lean as opposed to blessing, because blessing for me would mean that we don't have to worry about qualifying. We can just focus on being a good host and those kinds of things. But I think that the guys want that kind of a challenge. And so I think it takes one less worry off the table, one less thing off the table. But no, I think that they're just ready to sit there, much like the Canadian national team and the Mexican national team, and sit there and show for their country. So let's see. USA and Germany burned. Found out it's basically impossible to win soccer tournaments without a striker. Rack. A lot of the fan base don't like 3GB, looking for reasons. Yeah. Nix. Wonder if Daryl DK ever sees. I don't know. I think it was a flash in the pan. In injuries, age, injuries, all of those kinds of things. I don't know if DK, because I think DK has fallen so far down the depth chart. I mean, if you got DK, and then you're looking at PFOC, you're looking at Pepe, you're looking at the three guys that were there in this camp, you're looking at Brandon Vasquez, who's younger. So, you're looking at what, 8th, 7th, 8th, even, and I'm sure that I'm forgetting some guys too. So, that kind of stuff. I think Daryl DK is so far down the depth chart, I focus on other folks. Rack thinks the Dutch might win it all. We aren't supposed to win the game. It only hurts worse because we had real shots and it went wrong. Not our day. Yeah. Kefsey, Netherlands are great. Still not an embarrassing loss. Yeah, the way you gave up the goals is what's the most upsetting, not after giving up a single goal from open play. Yeah, the cutback got you twice, and the game got stretched for the third one. So that's where we are. And Jared has returned. And so, Jared, I'm just going through the timeline and what the folks were saying while we were having our Bart discussions.
Yeah, well, how did that end?
Yeah. Well, no, we were just, it's cool. It's okay. It's okay to be disappointed, but I think that Bart was once again making a case for not having Greg Berhalter around for the second cycle. That was probably the biggest thing that we were trying to work through, and that right now the United States in this hemisphere, as you lean toward the 2026 World Cup, has the best team. Yes, Canada won CONCACAF and was the top team in CONCACAF, but I think it's safe to say that the United States has the best team right now, and they also have more folks coming through the pipeline to follow in behind, where Bart made the point that Canada does not, and Mexico doesn't seem to have the young talent. It's very, very top-heavy when it comes to age. So the U.S. right now is the best team in CONCACAF, even though they didn't finish number one coming out of the tournament.
Yeah, here's the thing about it, though. the thing about that is you're correct. You can't let up.
No.
Treat this like college recruiting, where, oh man, we just had a great season. Everything's going great. Okay, you have to not let up.
Yeah.
You cannot give anyone an inch. You have to keep getting better and better because they will too. The success and good vibes of the U.S. national team are great. They have to transfer that into sustained success.
Yep.
And they have to keep going because none of that means anything if they get the next 4 years wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all you're left with is, hey, remember that time we had a fun team that made the round of 16 and got out of a weird group? That was fun. What happened after that? Nothing good. Okay, well, then none of it means anything. Yeah. To that point, Mexico's got problems they got to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like they have an older team
Mm-hmm.
that now they're going to have to get a new coach in. Like, Mexico's got problems they got to work through. Canada was naive, man. Like, that's the thing that sticks with me about that Canada team. Like, yeah, it's a great story. They got to the World Cup. They got absolutely boxed out in 3 games, and didn't really seem to have a legitimate game plan for anything. It was just like, okay, it's not working. We're going to change it. Now we're going to change it. Now we're going to change it. And then just had bad performances.
Yeah.
And granted, like, Canada was a tough group. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's just you gotta keep the momentum going forward, because if you don't, none of this means anything. At least it won't for me. I will be very much in the mindset of, oh, you had a great World Cup. That's great. What'd you do to back it up? Nothing. Well, didn't mean anything then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in the long term view of it, you have to keep things moving forward. Let Mexico worry about Mexico. Let Canada worry about Canada. Sounds like John Herdman's going to still be there for Canada, which is fine. Like, you can see what you got with him. I don't necessarily. I wonder if they could do better, but considering where he got them, they probably feel like that's what, that he gives them a great chance.
Yes. And, you're going to be trying to keep the roster together as opposed to the development from the younger part. And so I think that's the troubling part for me. If I follow Canadian soccer, it's like, yeah, it's great that you're going to have this same group being there for you for the next 4 years, but where's the development? Where's the growth? And where's that second generation? Bart said that they did not fare well in U19. So,
and on top of that, like, we know Costa Rica is an older team. Keylor Navas gave us hope for Costa Rican chaos for a minute.
Yes.
But you're wondering what CONCACAF's going to look like during this next stretch. I think it's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
The U.S. should feel really good about themselves, and thankfully, they don't have to qualify for the next World Cup. That part's pretty great, man.
Yeah, the question was posed: is it a blessing or a curse for 26?
Oh, it's a blessing for me. I think it's absolutely a blessing, because the alternative to this is being in Mexico's shoes, where you have an aging roster, a coach who just left, underperformance. Again, Mexico also had group of death energy going on.
Yes.
But the alternative to what you have right now, like, I would rather be burdened with expectation than not have any at all and be trying to outperform negative expectations. I would 10 times out of 10 would rather be burdened with the expectations of greatness.
Yeah.
Because then at least, sure, it's stressful and you want to fulfill those expectations. Absolutely. But it's better than the alternative, man. Like, that's just me.
Rack thinks we're still owed an explanation about what the issue was going on with Reyna.
Man, I don't even know. I don't know. Like, so the thing for me with it still stands that Tim Weah made it really hard to get him off the field. I thought the thing you could have done, especially late in that Dutch game, and then Reyna comes on at halftime. That's fine. as you were just throwing stuff at the wall to see if it stuck. And because you didn't have a striker you trusted really, I thought the thing you could have considered was to play Tim Weah up top and have Reyna play, off to the right hand side. And that's at that point you're just trying stuff because
Yep.
you're trying to make stuff happen. But yeah, I mean, Tim Weah made it really hard for anyone to get in those situations, and I am very curious about the health of Reyna, because the thing that really annoys me about all of it was that you had all of this like unsureness about the answers, about was he healthy, or was there an issue with health.
But
Like,
is
we
that
don't
any of our business in a world tournament?
okay, for me personally, when you talk about him possibly not being healthy, and then you get well, maybe he is, or maybe he's not,
Yeah.
and you've already got like this clamoring for him, it makes it more confusing, and it's going to give people the room to be kind of skeptical about everything you're saying. It felt unnecessary from Greg.
I mean, if I were in that situation, I mean, like I said, it's like being in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where somebody has a lower body injury, but they're eligible to play.
Yeah.
That if it was phrased that way and everyone was on the same page when it came to the delivery of information, I think that's the problem here, is that the delivery of information and what was said came at you from different angles, and it gave the impression of different things. And so you're sitting there and everybody's like, well, he said this and he said this. If the message had come out as one message, and have, Gio and Greg sit there and say, okay, here's what we're going to say. And we're going to do it this way. We're going to deliver the information like this, and still make it to where our opposition has to prepare for you coming onto the field or starting, but we don't want to give them any ammunition not to prepare for Gio Reyna. I think that
I get that, but yeah, like I said, my thing is, you said it was an injury, then he said it wasn't, and then
Right.
you end up with all of this chaos where it's like we don't know what's real or not.
Right.
Greg's already got a bunch of detractors,
right,
and a bunch of people who don't like him.
yes, and
So it's just all of this seemed woefully unnecessary, man.
yeah, and like I said, I think it's the delivery of the message and the uniformity of that delivery. If you'd come out from the beginning and everybody was on the same page, delivering the same message and the same information, then we wouldn't have had the follow-ups that we did and all the questions that we had. Treat it like those those coaches that sit there and it's like, Mark Recchi, he's got a lower body injury, but he's going to play. And then you find out after the Stanley Cup playoffs that he skated on a broken foot for the entire playoff.
Like, if it's just, hey, man, I feel like Tim Weah is giving us the best chance.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at as a coach. Didn't say that.
Right.
Like, especially when it's Greg Berhalter, who already has a bunch of people not liking him. To do all of that was just so unnecessary to me. That you already know you're going to deal with crap because you're Greg.
Yes.
Man, you already got enough rat's nests. You don't need to go make some more for yourself.
No. So Burns says LVG ugling up a game to advance in a tournament wasn't the first time, won't be the last. He's shameless. Hey, you're trying to advance in a tournament to determine a world.
Just win, baby. It's a knockout round. Just win, baby.
Absolutely.
Louis knows he does. I think Louis knows he doesn't have the horses if that game opens wide the hell up for extended periods of time. Louis knows what's up.
Yes, he does. Coco's asking if Brandon Vasquez should be at every USMNT camp for the next 2 years.
He needs to be at least some of them.
Yes.
Because I don't want to I will feel bad for Brandon if he falls off after this, like if he doesn't repeat this year, because in that case, you're looking at a situation where that might have been his only shot to be, to be a part of a national team and to play in a World Cup.
Yeah.
I'll feel bad for him at that point. It depends. Can he continue to play well? Does Brandon have it in him? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Also, Burned. Berhalter's biggest weaknesses: roster selection, game day tactics. Just wasn't good at either. And one of the things that we've always mentioned with Berhalter is that it seems like there are times he waits too late to pull the trigger on substitutions. A common thing that we look at with Berhalter is that he's reactionary instead of proactive in situations. He's reacting to the other guy, and sometimes it's too late, and sometimes it costs you. So that's one of the things that we're staring at there with Greg Berhalter. So Rack asks, do you think we did better against England because we had more time to prep?
I think so. And then you had time to prep with England, and I still am fascinated by that game because it just seemed like England was very uncomfortable having someone push them. Like they're not used to an actual fight.
Yeah.
Like they got into a match with somebody and they were not ready for that somebody to actually throw a punch.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know how to react. And it was kind of weird. They took care, credit to England. They took care of business yesterday because guess what? England's still playing and the U.S. is not.
Yep.
So there is that.
Yes.
But yeah, that was very weird. The England USA game is going to stay weird for a while. It's actually going to stick. I'm sure it's going to stick in my head for a while because it was just so, I guess, unexpected.
Yeah. Burned, and we're discussing the rankings of the teams in CONCACAF, and Byrne says Canada ironically relies on the U.S. college system to develop their players, like Tajon Buchanan, etc. Lots of ex-college players on that team, and also the women's team.
And this is I'm interested to see how colleges do going forward with developing talent because we've seen some good players come out of the college game.
Yeah,
and I think that level of competition is going to get higher and higher. At least I hope it does. We'll see. You're always going to have Olivier Giroud was a part of this conversation, for instance. Dude just set the record for goals for France. He didn't play in Ligue 1 until he was 24. Wasn't a part of the youth national teams.
36 now, is that right?
He's a beautiful 36-year-old man. But guys develop differently. Guys develop at different times.
Yeah.
We see it in all sports, but I feel like it's most heavily noticed in soccer. Like when we see Brandon Vasquez, who was a good backup striker who could go on a heater when he was given the opportunity, U.S. Open Cup legend. But one of the reasons he goes in the expansion draft is because you feel like, at that point, like no one's going to take Joseph's spot.
Yeah.
So
you have to protect yourself first.
Yeah,
and there would be folks that would be exposed.
No one's going to take Joseph's spot. So what's you hate to lose him for 50,000 because MLS still has stupid old school rules about the expansion draft. But when you left, it's like, oh, that's a depth striker. You didn't think of it as, oh man, that's a national team caliber striker we just lost. No one was saying that.
Mm-mm.
But Brandon Vasquez really found himself this year, and maybe that's what he can be going forward.
Yeah.
I hope for his sake it is.
Yeah.
And maybe he caught a 1-year heater. I don't know.
Or maybe it's the system and what they're having him do in Cincinnati. You don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's you just find the right fit where it works for you. Some guys go a place in multiple sports where they go somewhere and it just clicks for them.
Yeah.
And they go other places and it just doesn't click. We'll see. The other guys will be part of that conversation. You'll have other guys who need to go to college to find themselves. Miles Robinson wasn't a national team guy before he came out of Syracuse. You remember Atlanta drafts him number 2 overall, and it's like, well, he could be a really good center back. I don't think anyone expected him to be one of the best man-for-man center backs on the continent.
Mm-hmm.
Guys develop differently. Who knows what it's going to look like in not necessarily 4 years, but 2 years. When you're really getting into the nitty gritty of when you're going to be wanting to play these tournaments like Copa America.
Mm-hmm.
guys will have come along. Guys will have stalled out in the development. They'll have jumped in their development. All of this is entirely possible. You
Yeah.
just have to keep giving guys opportunities, and guys have to take their opportunities when they get them.
Don't know, Tom. Don't know when the new Atlanta United kit's going to drop. Probably somewhere around schedule release in the next couple of weeks, or maybe even just getting into training camp.
Hey, to that point,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the leaks more so than the drop itself.
Yes,
Because I feel like we haven't had the leaks yet.
no. And Bam does make the point that there is still an American at the World Cup. Ismail Elfath has the whistle for Japan and Croatia. And
Yeah, and I am as part of the Daisa Maeda fan club. I will be keeping an eye on this one.
well, and Elfath delivered the coolest red card the other day.
Oh yes,
He's just like, dude, I got to do it. It's
I thought he handled that so well too, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Go if you want to explain it.
Well, no, it's
for
just
anyone who missed it.
when you're on a yellow, you score a goal, you take your shirt off. That's 1 + 1 = 2. See, you got to go goodbye. And Elfath, he's walking up. I think it was to a Senegalese player. Was that right? Or Cameroonian?
Cameroon.
Yeah, Cameroonian player. And he scores, and he's taking his jersey off, and it's like they both kind of know what's coming. And Elfath walks over to him, and he puts his hands out, and he's like, you can almost see what's processing in his brain. It's like, I got to do this. I have to pull the trigger. And so it comes out of his pocket, yellow, red, and they both looked at each other like, yep, have a good day. You did it, and everything's cool. But good to see Ismail Elfath make it into the knockouts as a center ref. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that one up though, because that was I think Christine Uncle mentioned it as well. Like, I love the way he handled it because the guy scored. They're going home, but he scored a goal in the World Cup group stages. Like, so we're never going to get to experience that. He was on a yellow. He took off his shirt to celebrate. Ismail Elfath didn't step on his moment, didn't run over there and card him. He let him celebrate, let him have his moment, then walked over, and as he's talking to him, daps him up. Like, it's as you said, like, I have to do it. It's okay. And the guy was fine with it.
Yeah.
But I love that Elfath didn't try and step on the guy's moment.
Yeah.
Let him have his moment, let him have fun, and then gave him the card.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we go, and I did want to get your input on the last two that I'm going to mention.
Okay.
Man U ready to move for Cody Gakpo in January, willing to sell. PSV's willing to sell. However, United will have to pay £50 million for Gakpo, double what PSV wanted summer.
Well, hey, that's the English tax.
Mm-hmm. And
your
so,
English club, you got the NBC money. Guess who's going to pay?
You.
Yeah.
Looks like United may change their minds and head toward AC Milan's forward Rafael Leao, who is expected to join Real Madrid in the summer, now being lined up as a target by 2024 by Real Madrid.
Tax is still going to be there.
Yes.
Premier League tax doesn't go away, bud.
Real Madrid, Manchester City, and Manchester City's also possibly chasing after Palmeiras' Brazilian forward Endrick, who is 16. Barcelona keen on Kudus, but the Ghanaian midfielder open to a move to the Premier League. Ajax likely to ask for £40 million. That's from the three-letter paper, so take that information at your own risk. Everton and Leeds have joined Villa and Wolves in the battle to sign Mateus Cunha, Brazilian striker. Wolves also in talks with Atleti about Felipe at center back, who's 33, in a possible package deal with Cunha in January. That's from Fabrizio Romano. You'll remember when we were, and specifically Jason, was trumpeting the value of Moises Caicedo. Do you remember the initial numbers, Jarrett, that were being tossed around about getting Moises Caicedo to the European continent?
I do not. What were they?
£3.6 million. Manchester United didn't sign him. Brighton did. Now, if Manchester United wants him, according to the three-letter paper, it's going to cost them $70.
There you go, Japan. I'm so proud of you.
So Moises Caicedo, $3.6 million to come in. Manchester United, if you want him from Brighton, it's going to cost you $70. Once again, that's from the three-letter paper. Take it at your own risk.
I mean, there were. I think there were. I don't know if it was ever confirmed. There were rumors that Atlanta was interested in him before he went to Brighton.
That would have been so great.
So yeah, Good job of the scouting team, because I mean, you identified him. Just because you weren't able to get him, that sucked. But yeah.
Yes,
Juan
exactly.
Caicedo was so damn good.
Antonio
Conte, so damn good.
Antonio Conte hoping to sign Josko Vardiol. Chelsea's also interested. Arsenal's manager Mikel Arteta is going to have £50 million to spend in January, not planning on signing a replacement for Gabriel Jesus. Flown back to London to find out the extent of his injury following a consultation with Arsenal doctors on Monday. That's from the three-letter paper. Take the information at your own risk. Tottenham have joined Villa, Fulham, Inter Milan, and monitoring Franck Kessie at Barcelona. Atletico Madrid are hoping Joao Felix can increase his value during the World Cup before looking to sell in January. Hector Bellerin close to joining Roma on loan from Barca. Barca want a long-term replacement for Busquets. Interested in Yuri Tielemans. A joint Saudi-Qatari consortium is preparing a £3.2 billion bid to take over Liverpool. That's from the Sporting News. And the two that I wanted to close with you for the show today, it appears Alistair Johnston is officially official, heading to...
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by Dyson Maeda scoring a goal. I love that man so much.
Yeah, 1-0 to Japan over Croatia. So
my small Japanese Celtic boy,
yes,
just doing work.
And
Great job, son.
Alistair Johnston is now officially official, and it also appears Watford are on the verge of signing Ismail Kone on a 4.5-year deal, and it would be a record-setting deal for CF Montreal, soon to be Impact, probably, hopefully, maybe.
No, we already know that. Like, they already released their stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just, we're going back to the old logo, but we're not going to do everything right. Montreal's only going to do things half right. We already know this.
Yes.
Alistair Johnson makes sense. You love it if you are the rest of the East, because this is two moves where Montreal's going to have a lot of work to do this offseason.
They'll have the money to do it.
Yeah, the Alistair Johnson's gone. Kone is going to go. You know that Victor Wanyama is going to go as well. At least it sounds like he's gone. They're going to have they're going to have the money.
Mm-hmm.
Will Joey spend the money? That's going to be the question.
Yes.
And I don't know the answer to that. Alistair Johnson makes sense, though. So Celtic's current right back is Josip Juranovic, who is playing for Croatia, actually, right now. He is a pretty good right back. I think they got him out of Legia Warsaw for like $2.5 million.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk that he wants to move. The reason he wants to move is the same reason a lot of guys want to move, which is he's at that age now where if he makes his move, this is his chance to get a big contract down south in one of the big 5 leagues.
Yeah.
It makes sense. If you're going to go now and get your big move. It seems like Alistair Johnson's kind of the move to prep for that, which is, I'm happy. It's good for Celtic because at least they're trying to be proactive about that, to make sure you have cover in that situation. So yeah, not upset about that at all.
And so it's
remember
for Montreal, CF Montreal, Impact probably, maybe, hopefully sometime soon. Remember, Georgi Mihailovic
still gonna be.
Oh, I know.
Club de Fou.
I
hate it.
Yeah. So Georgi Mihailovic to AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie, Johnston to Celtic, Kone to Watford, and the word is it's going to be more than the $6 million that was garnered for the Mihailovic transfer. So good pieces of business by Montreal, and that
you just got to replace it.
Yes, that's the key. Japan and Croatia. Japan leading 1-0 at the break. 2:00. Brazil and South Korea. Brazil's a minus 370. Your 90-minute draw is just under a plus 500. And South Korea is a plus 1130 in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. What's the rest of your day?
Keeping up with these games. Things talking for good OGs. This is going to be a situation where, Japan might try and run Croatia into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Chase the rabbit around until the rabbit has a heart attack.
Yes. So we'll see what happens there.
See.
And keep an eye on Wilfred Nancy. There is talk about Columbus Crew, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. I think that's a show for today, and we'll be back at it tomorrow. So normal shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, no live because I have to wear makeup and a suit. But we will have the taped content. World Soccer Review will be up, and anything else that comes across on the network. Maybe our friends from the Fired Up Network up in Canada will be discussing things. So we'll post all that stuff to the network. So you will continue to have content Thursday and Friday, but then we'll be back at it again on Monday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, live
People
stuff.
hated the Derek Etienne signing. What the hell? What the smoking hell, y'all?
Yeah.
I'm just reading Tom's thing, like
No,
what he was
no
told by
question.
people, like,
Yeah.
oh, he only had 9 goals and 6 assists.
Yeah.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with y'all sometimes. Not you, Tom. I don't know what to do with everyone else sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how you, like, I don't know how people
Yeah.
yo, at some point you gotta just
Dude.
choose to not be miserable.
Yes.
Like,
That's
if everything's going bad, that's one thing. But at some point you gotta make that choice consciously.
Yeah, breathe, people. It's okay.
Jesus.
Jarrett, send us home.
Man, much love, y'all.
Yeah, what he said. We'll be back at it tomorrow at 9:05. So it's the end of the show. That means we get to do this.